Hey guys, thank you so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. I'm Daniel, and here on Game Your Future, we're all about helping gamers level up their life and realizing their full potential. And to help us today, we have a special guest. This is Jason Frishman, who is a father, a partner, a men's coach for fathers, and is a wizard at home cooking. So, Jason, thanks so much and welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm really excited to be here. As I was saying, I'm often leading the conversation, and I'm just so great to I'm excited to have it with you here.
Awesome. Well, no, thank you for
Yeah.
being here. So I know you have a fantastic, interesting, yeah, I guess, yeah, story for us, and as well as kind of where you want to take the adage that is the hero's journey. So tell us a little bit about kind of your background and kind of your work with the hero's journey. And for those that don't know, what is that? What does that mean?
Absolutely. Um, I often ask people, like, have you heard of the hero's journey? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, I say yes, you have. Have you heard about the story where a hero gets called out, falls out, or goes to another land, battles a dragon, climbs a mountain, and, gets a treasure and then returns home and uses that treasure for good? Everyone heard of that? Yes. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, every Pixar movie, things like that. It is everywhere. In fact, it's been called the monomyth, right? The hero's journey is the thing that people have studied and said, this is the tale. This is the way that we grow. This is an example for development. This is how we overcome in our lives. And it's true. I'm a psychologist. I got my doctorate, almost 30 years ago. And for the first 15 years of my career, I used the hero's journey as a way to design questions and interventions and to help and support people. You know, it's a powerful story of growth. Unfortunately, about 15, or fortunately, actually, about 18 years ago, I started to question it because it is so ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And it's seen as the story.
Mm.
And, in the work I do, dominant stories, as we can see with what's going on in our world and everything like that, dominant stories can become truly oppressive to other less known stories. And so I started looking at and researching and discovering other folk tales, other things that don't follow the hero's journey motif and narrative, and came to a place where I think, and I truly see that the way the hero's journey is being used today is really harmful to particularly to men and boys. And,
Wow.
simply in some ways to put it is the hero's journey tells us if you're not epic, if you're not legendary, then what are you? The hero's journey is never about the peasants,
Or even the
right?
side characters, right?
Exactly. They're all there mostly in service to the hero. And so
Right.
the story and basically what this story it's not, and we can go very deep and we can say that there's other ways to do it, but the way that it is in pop culture, the way that it is presented, who makes the rules? The heroes and the kings, or the peasant who becomes a hero and then the king, right? The people in power, the might makes right, there's a good guy and a bad guy. Like it takes out a lot of the nuance
Mm.
that exists in our world. And so that problem basically shrinks all of the possibilities, all of the narrative ways that we could express who we are and how we are to one another. And so
Yeah.
it's exciting because what else lives there? If we remove the hero's journey as the end all be all of all stories, what else is there? And how can we uncover, discover, and learn more about how our everyday lives can be magical and adventure filled? And we don't have to go off on an epic adventure to learn that, love was always there all along, or, that kind of thing. We can find it in our mundane everyday life.
And I think that's so important is to understand the power of the mundane because what I think what's interesting about the hero's journey, right, is that it is that kind of epic level person, right? And sure they start with maybe a monicum of ability or talent or resources, and then they kind of level up, right, using our game terms. But at some point how much of the hero's journey is like fiction, right? Is that kind of maybe where the problem is that in the pop culture, like the hero's journey and the reason why it's billion-dollar industry, right? I mean, you mentioned Star Wars using the hero's journey. How big of an IP is that, right? Lord of the Rings, all of Disney Pixar, right? I mean, we're talking multi-billion dollars, right? So like clearly they're doing something right.
Sure.
But is it really just in that sense of we should be treating this more as fiction than maybe society is kind of treating it, right? Because when you pull those kind of elements out of the movie, it again, it is for entertainment. So is that kind of where we're at to say like, hey, it's a really cool story, but let's make sure we understand that that's a story and there's other things that need to happen.
I'd give a yes and, right?
Okay.
Because 100% I'm with you on that. And there are incredibly potent and powerful lessons that we can take for our own growth. Like I said, I mentioned to you earlier, my dissertation was written from the perspective of the hero's journey. So there's a lot of value. And so it's not just fiction, but my first business doing some of this work I called Adventure's Other Half, because I will say that I think maybe the best way to put it is there's a lot of value in the hero's journey, but it's only half the story.
Yeah.
And we can do more and we can value more. I think you mentioned earlier this idea that, you know, what about the peasants? What about the sidekicks? What about all these people? Like, aren't their lives potentially magical as well? And so I don't have to have this fictional epic thing if I bring meaning and value and playfulness and, presence to the washing the dishes, cleaning the toilet, that guy, I joke, we live in Vermont and I heat my house with wood. And every year around this time, I joke that my favorite adventure personally is chopping wood,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
And yes, it calls the Zen chop wood, carry water, but there's a reality of this, right? Right now, well, my kids are getting older. They could do more of it, but forever, my wife didn't do it. My kids didn't do it. It was my job. I love it, but I usually did it at night. I'd go out to the woodshed and chop and carry in and do all that. And if I wasn't in my character, if I wasn't playing it, I could get bitter. I could get upset. I could be like, ugh, my wife's reading a book. The kids are cozy in bed, and I'm putting on the snowsuit to go chop wood and carry, and yet when I put on, when I utilize the tools that I share in the work I do on myself, I can get almost emotional about how amazing it is that I get to go out and chop wood. It's an amazing adventure.
And I'd love to dive more into the psychology behind it because I think there's so many people that think that if they're not constantly winning, right? If they don't feel like they're that epic hero, and it's like, oh, I gotta go, take care of the dishes, the laundry, the grass, whatever. It's like, well, that just means that I'm not important enough or interesting enough. Like I have to be doing more, right? So like,
Yeah.
and so I think what you said, like potentially damaging, right? So like, I'd love to explore a little bit more about that. Like, what are your thoughts there? And then how do we, fix that?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a big one. So yeah, like let's first go to the damaging piece, right?
Mhm.
If I'm not epic, if I'm not legendary, if I'm not constantly winning, what am I? So let's deconstruct that and take that apart and be like, all right, well, what's our definition of winning, right? I work with men who are winning in many, many ways of defining it. They're making tons of money, they're doing all these things, and yet they get home, and I joke about this, they're the man on the can. They're hiding in the bathroom because they don't know what's going on in like, we used to joke that, someone once said, I was opening this business, I was trying to figure out how to market it, and we were joking, a friend of mine and I, like, my niche is men with hemorrhoids because they're hiding in the bathroom for too long. I mean,
Yeah.
because again, if we're not winning, so is winning money? Is winning, like, how do we define that? And being able to radically challenge, question, and then redefine what winning is is one of the answers to like, well, how do we do this, right? What are my values? What is meaningful? What like
Mhm.
I've got the, one of the reasons my niche involves fathers, not just men, is because in some ways the door's already a little open because the father's looking at this like little being that they brought into the world that they purportedly love more than anything else. All right, well, what's that look like? Right?
Yeah.
How do you know? And let's question what manhood, what fatherhood actually is. What's the true adventure of manhood or fatherhood? And there's not an answer to that other than connection, presence,
Mm.
purpose, passion. These are things that as we develop, I don't need to go out and take over the world. I can get emotional chopping wood. I can have meaning cleaning the bed. I have two sons, and my wife once said, "You know what? I'm the only woman here. I'm not cleaning the toilet anymore." Okay, fair
Okay.
enough. And
Fair.
that means I've got to find a way to gamify it or to, I've got to find a way, look, do you mind if I swear? Is that something allowed on here?
Would it a little, right? I like
Okay.
to keep it
Well,
PG-13, but drop the
I
K.
can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. Listen, no matter what, if you're cleaning the toilet, it's always a crappy job. You'll do it that way.
Yeah.
And yet,
Everybody knows the real world you were trying to say.
yeah, exactly. So, you know what? It's always going to be a crappy job. But, my kids know if I put on Bob Marley and they're hearing it from the bathroom, they know that I'm cleaning it because I have a system, I have scaffolding
Mm.
that reminds me like, oh, you know what? A crappy job is a lot less crappy and perhaps a little more meaningful if I get to like have some fun with it, if I'm dancing along, if I'm doing that, and if I'm bringing up why I'm doing it. What core value am I living by cleaning the toilet? And if I can answer that, I win.
Yeah, and I think that part in particular is so powerful because understanding and relating it to the why, like why are you doing this,
Yes.
right, is so powerful because I think there's a lot of, I mean, that's really the core tenet of like motivation is to like you're motivated by what you want to achieve or do, right? And and just taking it in its like, if you look at it, I guess, myopically, right? It's just like cleaning the toilet is so it's clean. And you're like, like not a
I
lot
don't
of
really
value
care.
there. Why do I care, right? But right, but
Yeah.
if you can associate it with something like, oh, well, if I clean the toilet, that makes my wife happy and that makes my home life better and like I feel like I'm serving her and like she's like the star like this I just love her so much that I just want to take care of her and if cleaning the toilet helps me to get to that, awesome,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I mean, absolutely, and that's an amazing example. The real world one that I do for me is at my core, I want my house to be a comforting, welcoming, warm place for not just my family, but for any random visitor that comes to the tavern, right? Like
Yep.
that's what I want. Hissy, stinky bathroom is not fit that story. So for
Yep.
me, it's not about like personally, if I'm living by myself, you could ask my wife when I was living by myself, the bathroom was gross. I don't care,
Right.
but I truly care about it being welcoming for you to come in and use it. And it's not about, oh, I'm embarrassed if it's not nice. It's that I don't want you to ever think that. I want you to be comfortable sitting in my throne,
Yeah.
you know?
Right. And then so and you say it to the point of embarrassment, that I mean, say frankly, that's some people's motivation, right? Because they want
Yeah,
that kind of
sure.
social status or that social like I don't want people to think that I'm super dirty, so like so I want to protect my status. Like and that's okay. That's perfectly fine,
Yes,
right?
yes,
That's your
absolutely.
motivation. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's understanding again why that helps you stay
Yeah.
motivated to do that task, right?
Absolutely. And that, yeah, it's so important, and it's not something. I mean, if we look at even the bigger picture, it isn't something that as individuals we are encouraged to do. I can do the work of thinking about why, or I can swipe. Which one am I going to do?
Yeah. I think that's the biggest challenge, even for gamers especially, right? Whether you enjoy board games, video games, there's certain rules, there's structure to the game, right? This is how you win, this is how you lose, this is how you play, right? When we get into life, it's kind of more open world, I guess, in the sense of you can do what you want when you want. And there's not a little rule sheet or a quest tracker that says like, "Hey, you're doing this now." You're
Right.
like, so and I love like the quest trackers in games because it keeps you kind of on task to be like, oh, this is what you're doing. And it's usually like related to like whatever that storyline or quest chain, whatever, some kind of reward at the end that gives you that motivation to say like, I'm winning, I'm getting XP, I'm getting items, I'm getting whatever. But again, we don't usually have that. And I was like, and definitely not in a digital sense in the real world. So
Right.
what sort of so you mentioned kind of like scaffolding or structures. Like is that kind of where we need to be going and what has really helped you as far as kind of keeping that structure to kind of elevate the mundane, as you called it?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the one quick thing is you're absolutely right. I love the kind of, it's an open world metaphor, that element, except if we think about the more traditional ways that men win, right? Jobs, payment, like getting your big salary is the same as leveling up or getting the treasure or getting those things. And so we have it. And so unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the built-in external motivation, extrinsic motivations that is somewhat more like that kind of game that you were suggesting, actually push us towards, maybe not the kind of value-based, meaning-based thing life that we might want or that I believe we all need. And
Mm,
so you're right. On the other end, how do we scaffold for ourselves? How do we build this level of, you know, cleaning the toilet is meaningful or whatnot? And so yeah, there's a number of different strategies and techniques and practices that I use that, have relations to some of the gaming world, but also is, I talk with people about what is their journey? What is the course or the narrative arc of what they want to do? And so the very first question is, well, what is what we want to do? What's the quest? Let's name it, right? Like, let's name so what it is in some ways, and I never even thought about it this way, but we're imposing a more traditional gaming
mm,
setup, right? What are our wins? What are the way do we level up? In fact, I have a strategy where we call it the leveled up character. And this idea of how do we choose a leveled up character in which we step into and what does that look like? And how do I live my leveled up character when I'm parenting, when I'm at work, when I'm doing the toilet? Like, how do I step into that leveled up character? And on the alternate side, right, in the hero's journey, stereotypically, we are battling or engaging with our dragon, right? In the foundational adventures that I do with journeymen, we are relating to our imps. What are the little
mm,
imps that are buggering around and interfering and getting rid of, because it's a mundane experience, not a dragon experience.
yeah.
So I need to understand my imp, and then I need to know my leveled up character. And if I do the work, I can evolve my relationship with the imp. Because let's be honest, right? The dragon metaphor, it's changed over the years and we want to befriend it or whatever, but for the most part, it was battling dragons,
Right.
right? And that echoes even our mainstream medical model of growth and development, which is if we have a problem, we're going to cure it, we're going to kill it, we're going to cut it out, we're going to do those things. And that's not actually useful or meaningful or helpful in our emotional relational sense of who we are. So with our imps, I'm not trying to kill them or banish them from the kingdom. I want to understand them and then evolve my relationship with them so that they can sit at my table, be a part of my council. They can become a minion. They can be a familiar. They can, how will my imps support? Because even though they're buggering things up, they're getting in the way I talk about it is I've spoken with 1,000 different imps from the men that I work with.
Mm,
And ultimately the imps will say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing things to keep him safe. I'm doing things to keep him on track. and I'm using tools that I had to use when they were younger that no longer work. So how do we teach our imps to do better?
Okay, yeah, I'd love to dive into some examples if you have, from your own life or somebody, or even hypothetically, like so to really try to anchor it in for people, because yeah,
Yeah, of
because
course.
I love the idea. I just want to make sure to make it like a little bit more concrete if we can.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I'll use my own because I'm my own guinea pig too on all of this.
There you go.
So, because it's a pun, my one of my first imps, I do imp work before I do leveled up character work because we have to
Mm.
recognize what's getting in the way first, right? So,
Yep.
imp work would first be saying, all right, let me look in my life, where are the things that I get stuck? Where are the obstacles? Where are the hard parts? Where are the things that I have that I struggle the most with, right? So, for example, in my life, I work in the house. I work, in my basement office, and I'm also the primary cook in my home.
Mm.
So I work till 6, and then I run upstairs, make dinner, and try to have an evening with my family. That triggers something for me where I get impatient. And my impatience is, without going into psychoanalysis or whatever, my impatience is connected to a long line of things that have gone on for me in my life.
Mm.
Related to ADHD, related to my family history, like all of these things, I get impatient. And when I'm impatient, I don't act in a way that I'm most proud, whether that's snapping at my family or being controlling or, any number of things. So I have named my imp this one. We have many. That's a really kind of fun part is we can do lots of them, but I've named this particular imp impatience.
Mm.
And I've had to spend a lot of time. Like, what does impatience look like? How does it show up? When does it hear most often? Does it love when I'm tired or hungry or need to go to the bathroom? Or does it love, or does it hate when I do that? Like, what calls it into being? And what
Yeah.
does it want for me? I've developed a number of interviews where I interview men's imps through them, of course. But how do you interview? So I interview my own imp, and what does impatience want, right? It wants peace in the valley. It wants me to like be able to get stuff done so that I can be with my family because that's really what I want. I want to sit at the table and eat dinner. It has to be made first. And so
Yeah.
what does my imp want? It really wants to help me stay connected and get stuff done,
Mm.
right? And so over years now of working with impatience, I can now say, all right, what do you need? What do I need? How can we work together for me to make dinner better? Or for me to enter into my family? Because I go upstairs, they're already like doing homework. They're in their evening, Many dads will resonate. Like when I come home from work and they're in their evening and I want to open the door and have everyone go, "Hey, daddy's home." And yet they're like arguing and don't give a crap about me. Like they're doing their thing. So, for example, my imp suggested I thought of that while I'm down here, when I finish my last meeting, before I go upstairs, I have control of the stereo from this little device, and I put on an entrance song, some crazy wild thing. I put it on upstairs and I run upstairs. They sometimes laugh, they sometimes are annoyed, but it helps me to say to impatience, this is how I want to be. So I can get stuff done, I can be present, I can do all those things, and I can still show up as the character I want to be. Right. So that's some of the imp work. Over years, there's been, all sorts of really creative names. I have guys name their imps,
Mm.
little effer, the angry
Yeah.
monster, there's all sorts. So they name that. But then we move on to the leveled up character. So for me, and this will say a lot, but my leveled up character, I've named Grandpa Loki. I'm a massive Loki fan. I think that's a huge part. And
Nice.
my grandpa was someone who was um, obsessively and annoyingly positive and could build and put together anything. Like he was a master tailor, all these things. And
Wow.
so the combination of my grandpa character, and the character of the trickster is what I see myself at my best. And so I've done this work to really describe that. What does it look like in fantasy world, in reality, in me? And I have a, particular talisman that and all guys that I work with pick that, where I have something in my pocket that allows me to step into Grandpa Loki and allows me, and when I'm working and living and choosing to be Grandpa Loki, because you can't do it all the time. It's tiring. It's tiring to be your best.
Mhm.
So what are the times that I need to be a better Grandpa Loki, right? Perhaps it's the bedtime with my kids so that I'm not cranky, and I'm already tired or whatever. Perhaps Grandpa Loki sits in when I'm in a rough meeting or when what are the times? And then how does Grandpa Loki and impatience, how do they work together?
Okay. So is it really, it sounds like a lot of it is this kind of identity shift too, to say like I am this person, right? And so being able to embody that best version of yourself to say this is how I want to be. And does that have the I'm trying to understand, my limited understanding of psychology. Does that mean that it's kind of switching or kind of easier to get into and therefore kind of changes almost called the default setting, right? To say
I
like
love that.
so like, hey, I'm more of this person more often now because it gets easier and easier, and this is who I'm becoming. Right.
Yes, that's well said. Yes, you're a psychologist at heart. Yes.
Yeah. Love it.
We have these practices, and we basically, by training, I'm a narrative therapist. So
Hmm.
I study and I live narrative perspective, narrative stories. And one of the foundational cornerstones of narrative therapy, narrative ideology is the stories that we tell about ourselves and others tell about us direct the reality we live in and who we are. So if I change my story, I change myself. Now, it's obviously not that easy, but this is a medium to change my story.
All right, because and that I know we could go on a whole tangent of that too, because as far as like
Sure.
because I've heard that adage to change your story, change your life, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is that self identity that and that's as well as a whole talk on just kind of the positive or negative talk, like the self talk, right? Like it's
Yeah.
yeah the short version there I know is you never say I'm an idiot or I'm stupid. You say I did a stupid thing.
Right.
That can be accurate, sure, but you're not stupid because and that negative self-talk just kind of spirals down because like then your mind is like, oh, is that what we are? I need to be
Yeah.
stupider. Like it's unconscious, but it's like, oh no, don't do that. Like say like, no, I'm smart, and your brain will like continue to do smart things. Good job. I did a stupid thing. Yeah, okay, well that's a one-off. That's not going to happen again because I am smart, right?
Yes. I mean, to put it in the narrative therapy terms, the person is not the problem is the problem.
Yep, I love that too. That's good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, oh my gosh, and I know we could talk for hours. But I definitely want to bring
Oh,
it back I want to close out as far as the hero's journey and the kind of we talked a little bit about kind of the destructive aspect of it, and as far as how we can elevate the mundane, right? And I
hmm.
think that's such
Yeah.
a key point. Is there any portion of that we've missed that we want to make sure we talk about during this podcast?
Let's see. Um, Well, we've talked about, the why and the value based and the meaning making. Um, I think the thing that is really important, and we'll do it concisely, and if people want to hear more, they'll let you know. But
Yeah.
there is a movement from building routines or habits
Mm.
to creating rhythms to emerging rituals. Right? We often think of rituals as these big things and solemn and whatever, but a ritual is also like a routine by itself is a little bit soulless and heartless. Like it's a thing. At 4 o'clock, I do this thing. I do this thing before I do this thing. And then, right? Rhythm is that same thing with a little bit more soul, a little bit more heart. It's more embedded in our cycle of the day, or cycle of the week. It's like meaningful in its placement. And then a ritual is when you take that and add symbolic meaning to it. Like not only like a routine, I brush my teeth every morning. A rhythm is I brush my teeth when my kids brush my teeth so that we do it together, we have together time, and we don't forget because we help each other. It's connected. A ritual is where else can I brush my teeth with my children in other parts of my day? Right? I can choose to do something with them intentionally. I've learned like, or when we brush our teeth, what symbolic meaning does that have? We're not just keep taking care of our dental things, but we are being together. We are, there's a symbolic extrapolated meaning that comes from ritual. And so we can build that for anything that's mundane. So from routine to rhythm to ritual. And I think that is a really powerful way of looking at washing the dishes, doing the laundry, the everyday things that are just otherwise chores.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because that I think that's the key part of it is to say how can we make the mundane, as you say, elevated or more exciting, more fun, right? Because that's inherently yeah, talking out both sides of your mouth, right? Or it's like, well, it's mundane, but it's also fun. What? It's like, well, what if we
Yeah,
could make it more fun? So it's not as mundane. Like I think that's the real
exactly.
key. Because
Well, and I would add just fun is super important. And
yeah,
I think it's like a foundational element to almost everything. But let's also know, I sometimes say the magic is in the muck. Right? I think
nice.
the kids today are calling it type two fun, right?
Uh-huh.
That thing of like it's harsh in the middle of it, but it's meaningful afterwards. So yes, let's always look for fun. I'm gonna play, reggae whenever I clean the toilet, but I also know it's a crappy job, and so
Yeah,
how can it be meaningful? How can it be type two? How can it be these things that afterwards I'm like, I did that. All right,
yeah.
you know.
That reminds me of like, the probably like Souls-like games, if you've heard or if you played those. It's like Dark Souls or Demon
Okay,
Souls. Like those
sounds
series of
familiar.
games are brutally punishingly hard, like
Okay,
insanely hard. As far as like, I mean, we're harking back to like Nintendo. Like games have gotten easier as time has gone on, right? So like
okay.
between Nintendo all the way through like PlayStation 5, and so it's like, oh, the games are so much easier now. It's like, and then Dark Souls is like, no, let's go back and make them hard again. And that is
Ah,
it's
nice.
and it's so powerful because people go through it and they get mad, frustrated because it's hard, but then you get to wear that as a badge of honor when you beat the bosses because you're like, holy crap, I beat that crap. Like that is hard as
Yeah.
shit. Like, but
That's a
I beat
great
it.
example.
Yeah,
Yes.
so you get that sense of achievement, that sense of accomplishment. It was really hard. I had to go through the type two, the muck, the whatever, but I did it. And look at how awesome that is as a result. Right.
Absolutely. That's great. That's a really good example.
Yeah. And so just to kind of finish off and just in on a fun thing. So I'd also like to know just kind of a little bit of your gamer journey, like what kind of games you're into between video games. I think you said you like board games or card games as well. Just a little bit about kind of your journey as a gamer as well.
Oh, absolutely. When we first, connected, I was saying like I've never done video games, so that I throw that out on purpose. Um, I feel like I would have in another world, in another, the parallel, the variant of me would probably be really into it. I just, whatever. But I love tabletop. I love the adventure games. I love role-playing games. Fortunately, I have two sons who also really like it. So we have spent their childhood playing all sorts of really great things. Um, right now, and actually for a long time, our two favorites have been Dominion, which is a world building card game.
I've played Dominion. I love that one. Yep.
Okay, so that's a really big one for me. I love that. And because of my sense of humor, and the kids love Munchkin. We play Munchkin a lot.
And I played a lot of
Um,
Munchkin too. So, oh yeah, yeah, definitely played and loved both those. If you guys haven't checked out Dominion or Munchkin, definitely check those out. Those are really fun, especially if you are.
Absolutely.
And that's coming from a video gamer that's has played Dominion and Munchkin. I'm like, yeah, those are fun games. Definitely check
They're
those out.
super, super. Yeah. And they're creative and I like the idea of it's not linear, but there's a way to go,
Yeah,
So I love that.
I think that's one of the things I really liked about that is that the non-linear aspect. Because Dominion, for those that don't know, is a deck building game where there's kind of like a whole bunch of cards out, and you have to kind of like play your hand, but you cycle your hand, but you can quote unquote buy cards from the little bank kind of area to like add to your deck, and that makes your turns better, and you can buy the better stuff, and so it's like a really cool little concept. So I'm really glad for that one. And then Munchkin is just off the wall silliness, fun.
Zaniness.
Yeah. It's so
You
good.
know, I love the description of it is it's Dungeons and Dragons, but without the story, without the roles, without anything else. It's literally you kick open a door, you steal the treasure, you kill the monster, and you move
Yep.
on.
That's good. A lot of D&D references in Munchkin too. I
For
like
sure.
the gazebo for those that know that story.
Oh yes.
That one's in there too. So guys, look forward to that one. Gosh, so much fun. So I know we could keep talking forever, Jason, and definitely, guys, let us know if you want to have Jason back on to dive even deeper into the hero's journey and how we can learn from that in a different way. Because I know there's so much more we could go into. So definitely let me know. And before we go, so I know, Jason, so you said you don't really play video games, but have you played any video games before?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'll give
Because I
my
like to
age,
leave my guests with
Yeah,
one final question, and that is,
sure.
what is your favorite video game?
I'm gonna date myself, but my favorite video game was back in the day, Gauntlet. I mean,
You're
that's
not the
what I
first
was
person who
playing
said
it.
that too. So that's no, that's good. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. That was back in the arcade days. So,
Yes.
like I'm also a big pinball fan. So I don't know if
Oh, there
they
you
count, but I
go.
do love pinball.
Good. So, yeah. So no, the gauntlet play. Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. So, guys,
Nice.
Jason, this has been so much fun. So, where can people connect with you, find out more, learn what you do?
Oh, absolutely. So let's see. The website, the best way to get me is my website, which is journeymenfoundation.com. Um, like to say at this point, I'm small enough that if anyone reaches out, you're going to hear from me. I haven't automated anything, and you'll get a personal response if that's what you'd like. I'm also on socials. I can give you the links, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Those are the ones that I use most. And as part of the work I do with Journeyman for fathers, is I run. I get to say. I like to say I get to be the innkeeper of a virtual inn where men can step in, drop their shoulders, share their stories, find new maps and skills, and get some information from the shady guy in the corner. And so, one of the programs I run through Journeyman is a membership program called the Mug Club. And it's where fathers come in and we have regular meetings. We have regular, there's trainings. There's also just ways to be nourished, stay accountable, and get the support of other fathers who give a crap. And
Nice.
so, the Mug Club you can learn more about the Mug Club if you're a dad who gives a crap and wants to do better. That's on my website, journeymanfoundation.com. And otherwise, if you're interested in talking about this information or whatnot, feel free to reach out. The best email is jason@nourishedconnections.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jason. This has been so much fun. So, guys, definitely check out Jason, all the crazy good work that he's doing. And I do love the analogy of like, kind of your own virtual inn, basically, just kind of like a hangout for just for people to come sit and just kind of learn and just kind of yeah, learn from each other and just kind of just helping out. That's just so cool, so fun. So guys, so definitely check out Jason. And if you're interested in the gamification aspect specifically, that's definitely something I can help with. And so definitely check out dragonmorexp.com if you're into gamification and really trying to help also, a little bit of overlap, but really trying to help you up level and elevate that mundane. Like, how do we make it more fun? Because gamification definitely helps with that too. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.